Great morning, Holy Brothers! Thank you so much for joining us on our pathway to peace in the Garden of Peace. If you're following along, we're on page 232 inside, and today's lesson will be called Abolishing Anger. Removing anger from your heart. There are those who are full of anger and hatred towards their old partner. Their hearts still burn from the hurt and the pain that they experienced previously. And they cannot forgive, and they cannot forget. People sometimes just cannot move on. And they carry their shoulder, that burden with them, and it destroys and blazes a path through the rest of their life, burning down every good crop that they have, everything that they've planted and put the time in, and then when it sprouts, when it comes out, it is destroyed, run over, crushed, burned. As long as one of the sides harbor pain or anger in a heart, no one can live peacefully, him or her. The one who's angry has no peace because of the anger and hatred that festers inside, and the other one has no peace because of somebody else's harsh judgments. Neither of them has any rest until they placate, they forgive one another. So how in the world, in this case, does divorce help? We talked about last time, sometimes they just need to want to get rid of their other half because they can't stand them anymore. Why can't they stand them? Because I don't like my wife, because I decide that I want to be selfish, because I want things certain ways, because I think she should act towards me in a preconceived notion and a messed up mindset, and then that destroys my perception of what she should be, and my whole marriage is killed because of me.
You know, yesterday you said something. You said yesterday that there's no problem that can not be solved. But there is one. Infidelity.
Who's doing what? Give me an example of a case.
Somebody cheating.
A man, a husband, a wife.
A wife cheating.
Let's say the man first, right?
Okay.
Let's say a guy does something that is so bad, right? Big avera. It could be in a marriage. It could be outside of a marriage, right? There are three things we say that a person has to die for rather than commit, right? What are the three? The Torah says? Don't, Avodah Zarah, don't make another God other than Hashem, somebody that you're worshiping, because you're undermining your whole existence and the world's existence. Hashem created the world, constantly runs the world. He's the one in charge of everything, yes? Number two? Adultery. Having somebody else married, getting involved with somebody else's wife who is married. And number three? Murder. You're not allowed to kill someone, even if somebody puts a gun to somebody's head and says, you kill them, or else I'm going to kill you. Guess what? A person's not allowed to kill somebody. They have to let their life be taken.
Right.
Okay, let's say somebody didn't listen to the Torah. And one of those three, two of those three, three of those three, they violated the Torah. They went against the prohibition, and they said, no, my life is more valuable. I can't give up my life just because somebody else has to die. They'd rather kill the person so they can live. They're selfish, they're anti-Torah, and they go against something they should have died for. Dead! Finished. So, now what do? They violated a commandment. They're supposed to be dead. They can't, now that they've unalived the other person, they can't bring them back to life. Back in the day, anytime they could, they were performing Chaos Mason. They were bringing people back to life. This was a commonality in the Gemara time. Mm-hmm. But can we do that? No. Can you ever undo that kind of sin?
No.
The answer is no. You can't ever physically undo it. However, we still have something called teshuvah. Rabbi Nachman of Breslov says,
yes,
what?
Teshuvah, fine. But we're talking about you marriage. You can't
again.
marriage that
so the same idea, what I'm trying to get at with you, is that there's nobody that's ever beyond hope. Okay? Mm-hmm. So if that's the case with God, when you and God are what everything is about, and he says, even if you've committed something that you should have died for, you can ask, you're my son, you're my child, I always want you back in my life. Please return to me. Please come back home. No matter what you've done, a child is always a child. Now, let's say somebody committed something against a spouse. Can they ever undo the damage that they've caused physically? No. Let's say they had a kid, God forbid, with somebody from that relationship, that infidelity, right? They can't get rid of the kid. The kid's there, right? They're not going to murder the kid. So that's going to be a stain that's going to be always in existence. There might be a mamzer in the world. There might be an illegitimate child. They can never undo that.
Okay.
And therefore, what's your question?
That can't be fixed.
Physically,
that's a problem that cannot
physically
be solved.
that cannot be fixed, 100%.
Right.
However, let's talk about
He has to leave her if she cheated.
who should leave her
He has to leave her. He cannot be with her if she cheated.
because of
The Torah, like that's what the Torah says. The Gemara says. So
the Gemara says, him or her. A guy is allowed to have how many
if
wives?
she cheated,
A guy is allowed to have how many wives?
multiple wives.
Okay, so let's say a guy gets divorced.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say a guy does something right that's beyond repair. If it's up to the guy and he can fix something, then he absolutely has to do it.
Right.
Now, to her, the pain may be physical, the pain may be emotional, right? And he may have to do the rest of his life, make it up to her to try to get us to teshuva that he needs.
Right.
He's done a sin, but that doesn't mean he can give up. That doesn't mean he's off the hook now.
Right.
That means he has to work 1,000,000,000 times harder to try to do teshuva
Right.
and try to overcome this. Whatever he can in the physical world, he has to work his hardest to be able to do that teshuva,
Right.
that repentance,
Right.
that coming back. Whatever in the way that could be to her. If a guy does something and he's able to still be with his wife, then he has to make it up to her. And every single day, he's going to have to try harder. And he cannot harbor any type of resentment. He cannot have expectations. He should not have ideas of what she should have to do back to him if he's done something wrong, because he has to make it up to her 10,000 times more.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Good. So yeah, sometimes it's going to be very hard. And it's going to be very challenging based on what he's done. And that is his past. That's what he has to deal with. But that's his mission. That's his tikkun. That's his soul correction that he has to work towards the rest of his life.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What they needed to do as a married couple, in other words, is to make up and forgive one another. And that is still their task after divorce. Even if they're not together anymore, they still have that mission. Now, it's going to be 1,000,000,000 times harder. Because you still have the other half of his soul walking around in the world, maybe married to somebody else. And that is how he needs to still view his tikkun. That is still how he has to get his correction. So now she's somewhere else every single day. How is he going to learn what to do with himself? He's going to have to work 1,000,000,000 times harder now that she's not living with him. Just because they're not in the same household, because they're not married anymore, that doesn't mean he can give up on life. It's crazy.
So what does he do?
So what does he do? He still has to support her. He still has to charge her. He still has to respect her. But he can't have any idea of being with her physically if he's not able to do that anymore. He has to work 1,000,000,000 times harder. As a married couple, they have every reason to reconcile and continue married life together, because you're dealing with them at every moment and every time, right? Mm-hmm. There's a workable template for this. Apologize, make amends, and try to be better. Living together in the same house. Try to buy her flowers, try to buy her a gift, try to write her a note, express your regret, and do wonders towards her. But now that they're divorced, these old wounds are going to stay open and going to be salted and burned at so many times. The end of arguments, or is this just the beginning? Like you're asking. Divorce seems to be the end of all the arguments. Get her out of my house, get her out of my life. I do not have to deal with this annoyance, and then I'll have a better life. But in reality, it does not end the arguments at all. On the contrary, divorce is going to be the beginning of a long and bitter argument that's going to be drawn out for the rest of his life. She's always going to be his baby's mama. She's always going to be something to do with him in his life. That has to be. It's especially true when they have these children. There is no end to the problems that are going to arise. Had they remained together, they could have tried to fix these issues. But once they're separated and they still have kids, what's going to happen now? Every single time there's a family function, every single time there's going to be another event in the life for the milestone of the children, they're always going to have to try to work something out. Especially if they hate each other. It's going to be terrible for the kids. It's going to be terrible for them, their own selves. Every family occasion turns into a nightmare. And every birthday party, every bar mitzvah, every wedding, there's going to be arguments about whose side is going to be in charge, who's going to get the host of the party, who should come to visit, who's allowed to be at the ceremony. Expressions such as, well, if he comes, I'm not coming. Right? Then they're going to put that foot down even more. Make sure not to bring her with you. How dare you walk down the aisle with my kid when I'm the parent? How dare you bring the other parent to walk down when I should have the right to do it? Bickering becomes a matter of regular routine in that situation. Whoever was involved in the arguments that led to the divorce in the first place continue to react according to the residue of that pain. And they still harbor in their hearts all the time. All this comes together to make a pressure cooker of absolute anger, threats, tears, curses, arguments that each person stubbornly fights to hold their position, feeling that the other one is specifically out to hurt them. They're just doing that to annoy me. They're just doing it to be out to get me. They're doing it just to spite them. Right? Whenever a divorced couple meets as often as they need to, all those old memories, all those old things that they had together, open wounds over and over and over again. When a divorcee sees his or her partner happy with another spouse, with another family, feelings of jealousy, hatred, and revenge are always dumped into the mind. And those come bubbling up and prevail. If you had a relationship and you loved somebody, I don't care if you think you have nothing to do with them now, it's still a memory. You still have that ingrained in your mind. It's not something that you can just eliminate and zap out of the brain so easily. The relationship with children is a very complex one and is a constant cause of arguments. Do you have any friends that are divorced? Everybody knows somebody or somebody in somebody else's relationship?
I mean, my parents are divorced.
That's not too far away, holy brother. The claims of why doesn't he visit children? Why doesn't he care about them? Why doesn't he put in much more effort? Why do I have to take them out every weekend? Why am I the one paying for all these things? They're going to have so much more animosity towards them now. Or the opposite happens. He is visiting too much. He is not giving us space so we can have private time alone. Why is he always intruding on my space? He's trying to turn the children against me. He's trying to sour their minds. He's trying to put ideas into their heads that we're the crazy ones, when they're the crazy ones. Sometimes the father's not allowed to visit the children at all, or has limited visits to particular hours or particular weeks, and even these can only be in the presence of a social worker or when somebody else from the family is around to watch what's happening. There are issues of supporting the family, who's giving the money, court rulings, and many, many, many other sorrows. A divorced couple has difficulty coping with their children's emotional, social, educational, and physical problems. Each one blames the other one constantly and puts the responsibility off of themselves onto the other. Had they still been together, had they not been divorced, they could have focused their energy to finding a solution to help the child rather than to blame and to ruin the home even further. Their joint strength, their joint effort could have made it much easier to solve all these problems. In short, the solution, which they thought would make their lives so much easier. People say, if only I could get rid of her, it would be so much happier. I would be so much more content. Will end up making their lives so much more difficult and so much more complicated than ever. Divorce is not something that we run to. Divorce is not something that should be on the table when people are having fights and arguments and disagreements in their life. There is a mitzvah for it in the Torah, but it is certainly not one of your cards that you should be holding in your hand while you're married. If you need to reach out in emergency situations, we can talk about why, and we might get there, but it is still a problem that will be ongoing and bother him and hurt him the rest of his life. It is not a solution to be able to be happier, to avoid trouble. You can never run away from problems in life. God will bring you things, we said, in exponential ways. Don't look for that as a way to avoid hurt, to avoid pain when you don't want to deal with it, to try to get them out of your life. It is not worth it. The true solution. Let's just start a little bit of this before we conclude for today. A couple considering divorce needs to make an honest and responsible accounting of the situation. Consider that the children will be the first ones sacrificed on their altar of solution, on their altar of making things easier for themselves. They require counseling. They should require advice. Are they only willing to seek guidance based on faith if they haven't done so ever before? Are they willing to give their marriage a chance should they have an opportunity to work at it, to understand what life is really about? Have they ever read this book? Have they ever listened to these lessons? Have they ever talked to somebody who's foundationally founded in faith, in Judaism? Or are they doing this without God in their life? Others in the same predicament have managed to repair relationships ridiculously and to go on to live lives of whole happiness and proper peace through such actual guidance. So many people have been spared this kind of suffering. This can happen for them, and this can happen for you. If anybody is having trouble or doesn't understand what a relationship is about, or they're having difficulties in their daily encounters, please, you can get this book for them, The Garden of Peace. You can just send them these lessons of Pathway to Peace, or you can have them contact me directly. Try to figure out a solution where a person can forget the marriage. That's not the focus. The marriage is, how can I better myself in this world for me to accomplish what I've been put here for? It's me and God. Every relationship, every encounter that I have is somehow viewed as a message for me and a way for me to perfect myself. Don't run away from problems. See how I can be better myself, know what I should be doing in this world, and how to fulfill my own mission. If I'm going to be good and I'm going to work on myself, you don't think all my relationships are going to be better because of that? You don't think that my marriage is going to be magnified in peace and harmony? Unbelievably. With that, have an awesome, deliciously amazing rest of your day.